board. We now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderman Coulter, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderwoman Murphy, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Green, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Roddy, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, present. Alderman Vaccaro, present. Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone, present. Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, present. Alderwoman Cruzen, President Reed,
here.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderman Coulter, Alderman Conway, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderwoman Howard, Alderman Roddy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman French, Alderman Williamson, 18 present.
Quorum being present, I'll ask everyone in the chambers and the galleries who's able to stand to please rise for prayer. Giving all honor to God, Almighty God, source of all authority, we humbly ask guidance in our deliberations and wisdom in our conclusions. Amen. We will suspend with our regular order of business to take up our courtesy resolution calendar. I move for adoption of courtesy resolution calendar and obtain a second on the motion. Seconded by Alderman from the 25th. We're going to take up first resolution number 24. Kara, could you join me here at the dais? I'm going to have Kara tell you a little bit about the program that they've been running at UMSA for a number of years, helping St. Louis neighborhoods become stronger and helping our residents to organize better within our communities, not just in the city of St. Louis, but all across our region. Kara, could you please?
Yes. Good morning. Thank you, President Reed, for inviting the Neighborhood Leadership Academy graduates here today. As President Reed said, my name is Kara Lubischer, and I am with University of Missouri Extension, and I am the director of the Neighborhood Leadership Academy. Joining me here today is Kristen Wagner with University of Missouri St. Louis, who is our partner for the academy, and she's a co-facilitator. Founded in 2002, the Neighborhood Leadership Academy is a hands-on leadership training program for grassroots leaders, community volunteers, and nonprofit and local government staff. And over the years, we have graduated over 250 residents from the program, with the majority of them hailing from the city of St. Louis. So we thank the body for inviting the Neighborhood Leadership Academy graduates here today and for honoring the hard work that they have put into making the city of St. Louis a better place to live. So joining me from the class of 2014 is Beverly Bremer from Princeton Heights, Aaron Malone from Mission St. Louis, Rodney Norman from the West End neighborhood, and Carla Reed from Habitat for Humanity. And then also joining us are graduates from the class of 2015 that just graduated in November. That includes Erica Hagan from the West End neighborhood, Jean Sotomayor, also from the West End neighborhood, Amy Trapp from the Asthma and Allergy Foundation, and Roy Wheelock from Dutchtown.
Can I ask any aldermen who has residents represented up here, please join me at the dais. You know what? I know for one, I am so honored and thankful that each and every one of you have taken the time to make it through the academy. It's what's going to continue to make our neighborhoods stronger, and stronger neighborhoods makes for a stronger St. Louis. And burn a little bit of time so that we can get you all the people up here so that they can talk. I know, Tom, do you want to join us up here also? And then Beth. Oh, Beth is over here. Could you guys come on around? I'm going to let you speak first, and then I'll join in. Go ahead.
No, I just want to reiterate what the president said. I personally have worked with Bev Bremer for, well, almost 2 years now, and it's wonderful to have somebody like her, and I'm sure the rest, as helping with being our eyes and ears, because we can't be everywhere all the time. And it's so nice to know that other people are out there looking out for their neighborhood also. Thank you.
I just think it's great that we're recognizing community leaders and the leadership they provide in helping to formulate the bonds that bring neighborhoods together, and as we work together, we build stronger communities, stronger neighborhoods, and quality of life is better for all.
Tom, you want to just congratulate everybody?
Good morning, and thank you to each and every one of you. You are our future. You're talking to a group this morning, our automatic resolution that we think we labor in these vineyards every day, and boy, do we need all the help we can get. So congratulations on completion of your program, and we wish you the very best. Thank you.
Again, just to wrap up, I want to just thank each and every one of you again for continuing to work to make sure St. Louis is a strong and vibrant city. These resolutions, and each and every one of you will get a copy of the resolution. This is the highest honor the board has to give any organization or individual. And what it does, it cements in time some of your many contributions up until this moment into the permanent records of the city of St. Louis. So 100, 200 years from now, when you research the records of the city of St. Louis, they will have each and every one of your names written amongst those records, and people will be able to read about the contributions you made during this time of the Renaissance of the city of St. Louis. So congratulations to each and every one of you. Continue the great work that you're doing. And I move that we pass all these in bank.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Now, you know what that means. You've heard about the board and how we go back and forth. 100% of everybody here wants their names added to your resolutions. So a little bit later when you get the resolutions, you'll see every alderman's name listed on there. Thanks again and congratulations. been moved and seconded that we adopt our courtesy resolution calendar. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Madam Clerk, please make note of the in-bank change.
So noted.
With that, we return to our regular order of business. Introduction of honored guests. Any introduction of honored guests? Alderwoman from the 14th.
I'd like to have as my honored guest today, Gary Otten from Painters Local 58, and Martin Cassis, who is a consummate citizen, and he directs the swap meet down at the brewery at Lemp.
And more important, wrestler. So congratulations on that. And he started a wrestling program, so thank you so much for that, Martin. Alderman from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually thought that I had the distinction of introducing Martin Cassis this morning, but he can also be my guest down here along with Megan Shackelford. Welcome to the Board of Aldermen, as usual.
Alderman from 26.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to have as my honored guest today is Ms. Stephanie Robinson from UE, Mary Warren Johnson, and also the former comptroller and resident of 26th Ward, Vervis Jones. Thank you.
Alderman from the 8th.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. This morning, one of the honorees is a resident of the 8th Ward, Roy Wheelock, who's over here this morning. And then we have a long-term resident and block captain of the Shaw neighborhood that's made a big difference in our neighborhood, Maggie Kuhn, with us this morning.
Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from the 16th.
Guest today, Megan Shackelford, and a 16th Ward resident up in the gallery, John Fuchs.
Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from the 10th like to wrap us up.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. We're gathered here on 6 de Mayo. Just doesn't have the same ring as Cinco de Mayo, does it? This is the eve of the Kentucky Derby. It's the eve of Mother's Day weekend. Happy Mother's Day to Mr. Vaccaro. But more importantly, today we celebrate National Beverage Day, a day I hold close to my heart. It's the day I've dedicated my life to. Every one of you, go by your favorite beverage establishment, sit down, spend some money, and have a beverage today. Thank you very much.
Approval of the minutes.
We have none.
Report of city official.
Report of city officials can be found in sections A, B, and C of the agenda and have been placed in all aldermen's mailboxes. I have from His Honor the Mayor the following correspondence. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individual for appointment to the Waterman Lake Special Business District. The appointment of Harvey Sitterman, who resides in the 28th Ward and whose term will expire on December the 31st, 2019. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from 28th, you recognize the mayor's appointment to the Waterman Lake Special Business District.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move to confirm the mayor's appointment of Harvey Sitterman to the Waterman Lake SBD.
Moved by the Alderman from 28th, seconded by the Alderman from 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individual for appointment to the Locust Business District. The appointment of Gerald Opsel, who resides in the 5th Ward and whose term will expire on December 31st, 2019. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from 25th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Locust Business District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we appoint Jared Opsahl to the Locust Business District.
Moved by the Alderman from 25th, seconded by the Alderman from 12th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extent of report of city officials.
Dispense with line items 7 through 10, first reading board bills.
Board Bill number 1, sponsored by President Reed and Alderman Conway, the budget for fiscal years 2016 through 2017, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 42, sponsored by Alderman Conway and President Reed, an ordinance to provide for borrowing of funds in anticipation of the collection of tax payments levied by the city for deposit in the general revenue fund for a calendar year ending December the 31st, 2016, remaining uncollected, and other revenues remaining to be collected and deposited in the general revenue fund for fiscal year ending June the 30th, 2017, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 43, sponsored by Alderman Roddy, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for 4227 Swan. Board Bill 44, sponsored by Alderwoman Green, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for 3722 Tholozan. Board Bill 45, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis and Alderman Bosley, an ordinance amending Ordinance 69450 by modifying the terms of real estate tax abatement for the Shepard Apartments redevelopment area. Board Bill 46, sponsored by Alderman Conway, an ordinance pertaining to the transit sales tax imposed pursuant as adopted and approved by the voters, creating the Public Transit Sales Tax Trust Fund, directing the treasurer to deposit funds received pursuant to said sales tax into the City Public Transit Sales Tax Trust Fund, Account 1, appropriating $11,132,000 from the said sales tax for the period herein stated to the BiState Development Agency for certain purposes, providing for the payment of such funds during the period of July the 1st, 2016 through June the 30th, 2017, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 47, sponsored by Alderman Conway, an ordinance pertaining to the transit sales tax imposed pursuant as adopted and approved by the voters, creating the city's Public Transit Sales Tax Trust Fund, directing the treasurer to deposit funds received pursuant to said sales tax into the City Public Transit Sales Tax Trust Fund, Account 2, appropriating $11,132,000 from the said sales tax for the period herein stated by the BiState Development Agency for certain purposes, providing for the payment of such funds during the period July the 1st, 2016 through June the 30th, 2017, and containing an emergency severability clause. Board Bill 48, sponsored by Alderman Conway, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $22,065,000 as described and herein described as amended for the period herein stated, which sum is hereby appropriated out of the Transportation Trust Fund to the BiState Development Agency for transportation purposes, and to further provide that the appropriation is conditional upon the BiState Development Agency supplying the Board of Estimate and Apportionment an annual evaluation report, further providing that in no event shall the comptroller draw warrants on the treasurer for an amount greater than the amount of proceeds deposited in the Transportation Trust Fund during the period from July the 1st, 2016 through June the 30th, 2017, and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 49, sponsored by Alderman Conway, an ordinance authorizing the city to enter into the Fifth Amendment to the Memorandum of Agreement with the BiState Development Agency of Missouri and Illinois Metropolitan District and St. Louis County, Missouri, amending that certain memorandum of agreement dated as of November 1st, 2002, as amended for the purpose of authorizing said agency to issue refunding obligation payable and secured by pledge of the annual appropriation of the quarter-cent sales tax levied by the city for public transportation purposes by ordinance 63168, additional quarter-cent sales tax levied by the city for public transportation purposes by ordinance 64111. Board Bill 50, sponsored by Alderman Roddy, and ordinance repealing ordinance 70261, authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller of the city to purchase and acquire real property commonly known as 1212 through 18 and 1401 Central Industrial Drive, consisting of approximately 13 acres from Green Street Central Industrial Drive. The total purchase price for the property shall not exceed $7,800,000. Board Bill 51, sponsored by Alderman Roddy, an ordinance approving a petition to establish the 4101 Laclede Community Improvement District. Board Bill 52, Sponsored by Alderman Ogilvie, an ordinance prohibiting the issuance of any 3 a.m. closing permits for any currently non-3 a.m. licensed premises within the boundaries of the 24th Ward Liquor Control District and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 53, sponsored by Alderman Ogilvie, Ingracia, Spencer, Green, and Carter, an ordinance pertaining to campaign contribution limits containing findings, containing definitions, campaign contribution limitation amounts, adjustments to limitation amounts, determination of maximum contribution, contribution from persons under 14, filing campaign finance disclosure reports, establishment of the municipal officials and officers ethics commission, duties of the municipal officials and officers ethics commission, violations and a penalty clause and a severability clause. Board Bill 54 is sponsored by Aldermen and Alderwomen Green, Ingracia, Ogilvie, and Spencer, an ordinance banning lobbyists from the Board of Aldermen chambers during the meetings. Board Bill 55, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, an ordinance recommended by the Parking Commission, making appropriation for payment of the operating expenses, capital equipment and improvement expenses, including lease purchase agreement involving the Parking Division assets and debt service expenses of the Parking Division of the Treasurer's Office, Keel and City Hall Parking, Information Technologies Office, Argyle Parking, Shoto Building and Parking, Williams Paper Parking, Central Downtown Parking, Buckingham Parking, Couples Parking, Justice Parking for fiscal year beginning July the 1st, 2016 and ending June the 30th, 2017, amounting in the aggregate to the sum of $16,679,750 and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 56, sponsored by Alderman Coulter, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 2105 Ann and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 57, sponsored by President Reed, an ordinance calling and providing for the holding of an election in the city on November the 8th, 2016 for the purpose of submitting to the qualified electors of the city a proposal to levy and collect a property tax of 5 cents per each $100 of assessed evaluation for the purpose of providing services to persons aged 60 or older. That's the extent of our first readings.
Madam Clerk, please assign Board Bill number 57 to Ways and Means, and Board Bill number 53 to Rules.
So noted.
Second reading.
Reference to committee.
Reference to committee. Sir.
To the Public Safety Committee, Board Bill 52. To the Rules Committee, Board Bills 54 and 53. To the Neighborhood Development Committee, Board Bills 43 and 56. To the Ways and Means Committee, Board Bills 1, 42, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 55, and 57. And to the Housing Committee, Board Bills 44 and 45. That's the extent of reference to committees.
Second reading.
Following board bill was reported out of Transportation and Commerce Committee, Board Bill number 2, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Investment and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Director of Airports and the Comptroller to enter into and execute the Lambert Airport Use Lease Agreement and an Airport Use Lease Agreement cargo addendum between the city and any airline operator containing a severability clause and containing an emergency clause. The following board bill was reported out of the Ways and Means Committee. Board Bill 34, sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Investment and Apportionment, authorizing and directing St. Louis Municipal Finance Corporation to issue and sell as recreation sales tax leasehold revenue refunding bond series 2016 in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $43 million. The following board bills were reported out of the Streets Committee. Board Bill 6, sponsored sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro, an ordinance establishing a four-way stop sign at the intersection of Olethe and Prather by regulating all northbound, southbound traffic traveling on Prather at Olethe and regulating all eastbound, westbound traffic traveling on Olethe at Prather and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill number 7, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, an ordinance pertaining to commercial semi-trailer trucks, also known as semis or tractor trailers, prohibiting such traffic along certain portions of Chippewa, Keokuk, Osage, and Kosciuszko streets, and along certain portion of Marine, exempting from said prohibition emergency vehicles, including privately owned tow trucks, when providing emergency service to non-commercial vehicles, vehicles making deliveries to nearby addresses, and vehicles with a gross vehicle weight of less than 26,000 pounds, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill number 8, sponsored by Alderman Roddy, and ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to vacate travel on Wise between Kings Highway and Brother Thornton Way, abutting 4946 and 4947 Wise, 30-foot portion of the 15-foot wide east-west alley in City Block 5592, abutting 4947 Wise. Board Bill number 9, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, and ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service authorizing the 2016 St. Louis Works and 50/50 sidewalk programs citywide, appropriating $5,500,000 from the Street Improvement Fund and the Public Work Emergency Clause. Board Bill number 26, sponsored by Alderman Ortman, and ordinance establishing a four-way stop sign at the intersection of Sidney and McNair by regulating all northbound, southbound traffic traveling on McNair at Sidney and regulating all eastbound and westbound traffic traveling on Sidney at McNair and containing an emergency clause. The following board bill was reported out of the Health and Human Services Committee, Board Bill 36, sponsored by Aldermen and Alderwomen Cruzen, Spencer, Flowers, Green, Howard, Ortman, and Williamson, an ordinance pertaining to the development and administration of a program for monitoring the prescribing and dispensing of Schedule 2, 3, and 4 controlled substances by professionals licensed to prescribe or dispense substances within the city, establishing penalties for violations thereof, and containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of our second reading.
Madam Clerk, please assign Board Bill number 55 to Streets.
So noted.
We'll dispense with line items 14 through 19. First reading of resolutions.
Resolution 21, sponsored by Alderwoman Tyus, the St. Louis Board of Aldermen directed Ways and Means Committee to convene a hearing for the purpose of examining, investigating, and gathering information regarding who pays earnings taxes, who does not pay earnings taxes, what revenue has been lost by the exemption of earnings taxes on dividends and stock options since 2000, and what revenue since 2000 has been lost by diverting earnings tax requirements to pay for office improvements and other
We have some order.
and other unknown entities, what revenue has been lost during earnings tax generated to pay for site developmental costs for development projects, and to have the Ways and Means Committee produce a written fiscal report to be distributed to the members of the Board of Aldermen.
Alderwoman from the first, you recognized on the first reading of resolution number 21.
Mr. President, members of the board, we ran out of time last time, but I'm not going away with this, and I would like it read. Hopefully we will get this done, because otherwise I'll bring more stuff up, because I got a long history, so it's better to address this than I'd bring the rest of it up.
All right. Madam Clerk, please read resolution number 21.
Whereas St. Louis City 1% earnings tax has been levied on the city residents, workers since the late 1940s, and a significant portion of the city's general revenue is derived from the earnings tax. Some estimates have been as much as 1/3 of the city's annual budget, bringing in about 3 times what property taxes bring in and twice the amount of what sales taxes bring in. and taxes fairly paid by everyone for the benefit of society at large are an important part of a democratic society. And whereas in November, thank you. In November 2010, Proposition A was passed in Missouri requiring the city of St. Louis and Kansas City, the only two cities in Missouri to have earnings taxes, to have the voters in the cities reauthorize the city's earnings tax every 5 years. And whereas many of the city of St. Louis elected officials have supported the earnings tax as an important part of the city's budget and encouraged the voters of St. Louis to reauthorize the tax. And whereas over the years, St. Louis has come up with some creative and some would say unfair way to exempt businesses and others from paying their fair share of the earnings taxes. These creative ways including reimbursing and diverting earnings taxes to pay for office equipment and other unknown entities using earnings taxes generated to pay for site developmental costs for several development projects, including the proposed Geospatial Intelligence Agency site. And whereas in another way, to exempt certain people from paying their fair share of earnings tax, in September 2000, Board Bill 172 was introduced, and in December 2000, this Board of Aldermen passed Board Bill 172, exempting any income received by a person in the form of dividend and any income received by a person in the form of or related to the grant, vesting, or exercise of stock options, performance shares, or performance-based stock-related incentive plans from the city's earnings tax. The board bill contained an emergency clause and was signed into law by the then mayor of the city of St. Louis, becoming Ordinance 65094. And whereas the ordinance was passed after Ralston Perina went to court to clear up the Missouri Supreme Court and lost the argument that the city should not apply the earnings tax to stock options, which are generally given to top executives as a bonus. And whereas Board Bill 172 was supported by the RCGA, who estimated that the exemption of dividends and stock options would cost the city only about $350,000, and said estimates were also repeated by several of the co-sponsors in the press and on the floor of the Board of Aldermen as a reason to support the exemption. And whereas RCGA's estimate of the cost to the city of St. Louis to exempt the dividends and stock options was based on what is now known to be several false assumptions and or omissions of information. And whereas on January the 21st, 2001, Dave Nicholas of the Post-Dispatch reported that 6 top Ralston executives were going to cash in $118 million of stock options and restricted stock when the company was sold to Nestle. Nicholas reported that if Board Bill 172 had not been passed in December 2000, the city of St. Louis would have picked up $1.77 million for just those 6 executives. And whereas it is important to note that both St. Louis and Kansas City have earnings taxes, and that Kansas City does not have an exemption of their earnings tax on dividends and stock options. And whereas for the last 16 years, the city has lost millions of dollars by giving an earnings tax break to the top executives who make millions of dollars a year, while the minimum wage earner or middle management has to pay the 1% earnings tax on his or her wages, thus effectively taxing those who can least afford it while giving tax breaks to the wealthy. And whereas the best way we as members of the Board of Aldermen can assure the voters of this city that everyone is being fairly taxed is to make an inquiry to both the budget director and the assistant collector for the earnings tax in the office of the collector of revenue as to the amount of revenue lost by the exemption of dividends and stock options. And if that amount is more than $350,000 that was reported to the board, it would cost then we should repeal Ordinance 65094 immediately, as it was passed on faulty and untrue financial data. And whereas we as members of the Board of Aldermen can further assure the voters of the city that everyone is being taxed fairly, is to also make inquiries to the practice of allowing businesses of diverting their earnings tax requirements to pay for office improvements and other unknown entities, and using earnings taxes generated to pay for site developmental costs for several development projects. And if the practice is found to be a tax exemption for the wealthy while making the working people of our fair city pay the taxes, then this board shall repeal all ordinances or laws that allow such an unfair burden of taxes on those who can least afford it. Now therefore be it resolved that this Board of Aldermen direct the Ways and Means Committee to convene a hearing for the purpose of examining, investigating, and gathering information regarding who pay earnings taxes, who does not pay earnings taxes, and what revenue has been lost by the exemption of earnings taxes on dividends and stock options since 2000, and what revenue since 2000 has been lost by diverting earnings tax requirements to pay for the office improvements and other unknown entities, and what revenue has been lost using earnings taxes generated to pay for site developmental costs for development projects, and to have the Ways and Means Committee produce a written fiscal report to be distributed to the members of the Board of Aldermen, introduced on the 6th day of May 2016 by the Honorable Sharon Tyus, Alderwoman, 1st Ward.
Alderwoman from the 1st, you recognize.
Mr. President, members of the board, I'd ask that this be sent to Ways and Means.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 1st that we send resolution number 21 to Ways and Means. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk, please sign resolution number 21 to Ways and Means.
So noted. Resolution 22, sponsored by Alderwoman Ingrassia, the Board of Aldermen urges the Senate to perform its constitutional duty to provide advice and consent on the President's Supreme Court nominee.
Alderman from the 25th, you recognize on the first reading of resolution number 22.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our colleague from the 6th is unfortunately not able to be here this morning due to illness. So she's asked me to ask for unanimous consent on this resolution. The resolution itself is a call to action by the White House and MoveOn.org to make sure that the Senate does its job in providing advice and consent on the Supreme Court Justice nominee that our President has put forth. And the resolution calls upon our Senate members, McCaskill and Blunt, to do their jobs and to make sure that we move forward with this process and give the appropriate time that is due to this consideration. So with that, I move for unanimous consent on this resolution.
Hearing no objection to unanimous consent, would you like to move for adoption?
I would like to move for adoption of Resolution 22.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 25th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 12th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extended first reading of resolutions.
Dispense with line item 22, miscellaneous unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements.
Wednesday, Ways and Means Committee meeting at 8:30 in the Leisure Room, and it's going to be discussion of budget for fiscal year 2016 and 2017. Thursday, Ways and Means Committee meeting, 8:30 a.m. in the Leisure Room. Friday, full board meeting, 10 a.m. in the chambers. That's the extent of my announcements.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 20th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. So this weekend is the famous Cherokee Cinco de Mayo Festival. It'll be tomorrow on Cherokee Street. Starts at 11 a.m. The People's Joy Parade, for those you don't know, starts at 1:11. It's the largest Cinco de Mayo festival in the entire Midwest, with over 50,000 people coming down last year. We expect a fantastic day tomorrow. So come on down to Cherokee Street. If you want a VIP pass, I've still got a few left, so come see me after the board meeting. Thanks so much.
Alderman from the 12th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd just like to take a moment to wish all the mothers this weekend a happy Mother's Day and have a wonderful day on top of it. Thank you.
Yeah, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. Let's give them all a big round of applause. Alderwoman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. One of the things I wanted to do is to make sure that everybody was aware of the excitement that's going on the Harris-Stowe campus this weekend. For those of you all who don't know, we have a very strong campus that is involved in arts and creative impression through communication. So the festival this weekend involves people from all over the country. We have people who have been in the arts for years. We have students from Harris-Stowe, St. Louis University, Maryville, you name it. People are participating in this. You will have everything is called the Black Speculative Arts Movement, and it will be all day from 9 to 9, Friday and Saturday. Dr. Ronaldo Anderson is the lead person putting this together. He is the chair of the communications department at Harris-Stowe. You'll see comics, art, film festivals, seminars, step shows, all kinds of artists and creatives. So I hope that you have an opportunity to go by and support this movement. And not only that, enrich yourself. Cultural enrichment brings about peace. So when you understand people and you understand who they are, and you have a different way to communicate, it really calms things down.
And you can
so I'm
appreciate.
excited. I'm really excited. So I'll be there. My next thing is, I'm starting now, even though the event is not until June 17th, but the Salute to Women in Leadership, being sponsored by the Urban League of St. Louis and the Guild League of St. Louis, will be June 17th. Our Lifetime Achievement awardees will be Mary Wilson of the Supremes and Melba Moore. Freddie Jackson will be doing the entertainment, and the list goes on and on locally and internationally. So hopefully you'll be looking to buy your ticket. Hopefully you'll be looking to be sponsors, and I will be emailing and dropping off information for people for the next 2 weeks, and I would really like to see great support. Those funds are used, as you all have seen, for emergency situations, for communities, families, and they're doing a great job there at the Urban League. But now, what I really got to talk about, that's my colleague, the Honorable Terry Kennedy.
Oh, yeah.
And he's honorable to me because we've been working together. I can't even remember how long, because my son was involved with the African dance troupe when he was young, so it goes way back, way back. But I have to honor him today, and let's remember that this Sunday, May 8th, is his birthday.
Uh-oh. He does age then, right?
But you see, I wish I could dress him every day in African regale.
Yeah.
I wish I could set him on a throne.
Uh-huh.
Because he has chosen to be a great leader in our community.
Yeah.
He has chosen to be there and be consistent with his message. And not only that, the way he expressed himself. So you see, when you have a man who can walk and have the footsteps and the footprint that this man has in this community, you can never forget him. So many times when you hear me say, I have to go see what my king has to say, I mean that. Because you know I'm very opinionated. I don't lie about it. I don't try to hide it. But
get out.
But he can calm me down. He can make me have that second thought. So I want to give all praise to you, and please enjoy your day of birth, the Honorable Terry Kennedy.
Let's all give Alderman Terry Kennedy a round of applause. Two things were accomplished then. First thing was giving him a congratulations on his birthday, and the second thing that was accomplished, we now know that Terry Kennedy actually ages too, like the rest of us, and you have a birthday. So he doesn't look it, does he? So any further announcements? Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion to excuse. Oh, Alderman from the 25th. Go ahead.
My apologies. I should have been a little quicker on the microphone. I know that we covered this at the beginning of the meeting, but I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize all of the wonderful mothers that are here today and throughout our communities that are doing a wonderful job taking care of the future generations of St. Louisans to come. And this weekend is Mother's Day, as I think all of us know, and I just want to wish all of the mothers out there a very happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, it can't be done enough, so yeah, congratulations and happy Mother's Day, everyone. Alderman from the 18th, you're recognized on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. The Alderwoman from the 19th can pick up her check a little bit later. That was both a surprise to me and pleasing. As you know, I do have a twin brother. We were born on Mother's Day, and they only thought it was one child.
Wow.
What a gift.
Wow.
Two of us. With that, I'd like to move that the alderperson from the 4th, 7th, and 21st be excused for necessary absence.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move that the board adjourns until Friday, May 13th, 10 a.m.
Moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 13th. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Stand adjourned.